I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community, and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
So this week we have the Democratic National Convention, but I don't refer to it as the Democratic National Convention. You know what I refer to it as? The Depopulation of Negroes Convention. Yeah, it's the Depopulation of Negroes Convention because the Democratic Party has always been about the depopulation of black people, has always been about the destruction of the black family. You can start going all the way back to the Democratic Party's forceful endorsement of slavery, and then going to Jim Crow, and then fighting through the KKK, the state-sanctioned terrorist organization that were started by former Democrats. Yeah, that is the Democratic Party up to today. You want to know why I call the Democratic Party the Democratic National Convention, the Depopulation of Negroes Convention? Well, think about it. Think about all the policies. Think about the agenda that the Democratic Party pushes. Every single piece of agenda item that they push, that their platform is aimed for the destruction of the family, is aimed for the emasculation of men. And nowhere is that seen more often than in the black community and in the urban areas that are run primarily by the Democratic Party.
I'm just an everyday average, blue-collar, hardworking man, American. I'm a black American, that's a conservative, and that's a Christian. I love the Lord. I love what the Lord's done for me. I love what he's doing for me. But more importantly, I'm glad he woke me up to this liberal feminism that's destroying our nation. It's destroying our nation to such a degree that even though black people are 13% of the population, 12.1% of them identify as non-heterosexual. Did you know that? White people are 79% of the population. Only 5.6% of them identify as non-heterosexual. So why don't you just do the math? You combine that with an excruciatingly, disproportionately high abortion rate in the black community, and a clear picture of what the intent starts to form. You're able to see the democratic idea being realized. Once they get your vote, they don't even know your name.
And you see, you have 12% of black people who identify as non-heterosexual. That's a lifestyle that doesn't lead to reproduction. And that's why I say the Democratic Party is all about the depopulation of Negroes. Because every single thing they support leads to depopulation. Start with abortion. Think about ever since Roe v. Wade was passed back in 1973, all the black babies that were aborted. Now, if you look at the city of New York, you have more black babies aborted than they are born. The birth rate is in decline in the black community. Why do you think our population has remained around 12, 13, 14%? It has remained stagnant ever since the 1960s. Whereas you have other populations come in who rates are growing, are increasing because they don't abort their babies, and by and large, they're not part of the LGBTQ. See, the Democrats were smart. The progressives and Marxists were smart. They knew they could tack on this transgender, tack on the LGBTQ rights, and attach that to the civil rights movement, attach it to black people. And you know what that's done? That has perverted the black community. They're using perversion to destroy the black community. You have these church plant pastors who endorse this stuff. So think about the other items of the Democratic Party, of their agenda. When it comes to going to, yes, the person that's running for president right now was the first vice president to actually go and visit an abortion facility. This same person, when they started running for president, actually had a promo with RuPaul's drag queen. They want drag queens reading to your school because they want to normalize this stuff. Because if you normalize this type of behavior, it doesn't lead to reproduction. Don't you know these liberals and Marxists don't want the population to reach a certain number? That's what they're pushing for. And they're doing this primarily in urban centers because they know these people are trapped by these socialist democratic policy. And think about all the immigrants they're sending into our community. You got black people being pushed to one part of the city through gentrification, and then you have immigrants coming in taking their spot. That's another way they're trying to depopulate black people. And these same Democratic politicians were talking about defunding the police. Don't you know which area impacted the most by defunding the police? Black communities. All these areas impacted by that. So all of these things contribute to the Democratic platform of depopulation of Negroes. And to top it off, guess what they're offering in Chicago this week? Free vasectomies and free abortions. Attendees at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago will have the opportunity to get a free abortion or vasectomy just blocks away from the event. And vasectomy appointments are filling up fast. See, that's another thing too. When you are in a society that sees masculinity as toxic, when you're in a society that constantly degrades men and constantly minimizes men, men don't want to have children anymore. And also when you're in a society where children are not seen as a privilege, not seen as a gift from God, but are seen as a nuisance, when you have those two things combined, people don't want to have children anymore. Men don't want to procreate anymore. What man in the right mind would want to have a vasectomy unless he's already had children beforehand? What man in the right mind would do that? A man that is selfish. And selfishness is running rampant in this country, is running rampant in the world. That's not surprising though, because in 2 Timothy chapter 3, it talks about how men will be lovers of themselves and they will be selfish and those kind of things. So it's not surprising that men would want to sacrifice their future for pleasure, sacrifice their future because they're selfish, because they only think about themselves. They're not thinking about the furthering of their lineage. They're not willing to share themselves. They're not willing to be responsible for another human being. That's selfishness. And that's a sign of a weak man. That's a sign of an emasculated man. An emasculated man is a man that doesn't want to take responsibility. An emasculated man is a man that doesn't want to share himself, that doesn't want to see the furthering of his lineage. That's an emasculated man. That's a weak man. That's an effeminate man. Planned Parenthood Great Rivers, which serves most of Missouri and part of southern Illinois, is sending a mobile health center to the Windy City's West Loop to offer reproductive services on Monday and Tuesday. Medical abortions are reportedly available on both days, with vasectomies being exclusively offered Monday. Vasectomies are reportedly in high demand, and there's already a waiting list. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Americans for Contraception plans to erect an 18-foot tall inflatable intrauterine device, or IUD, named Frida Womb. Look at that. And Kamala Harris, she's all about reproductive freedom. She's all about abortion. And I'm not surprised, coming from a person that didn't have a child of her own. I'm not surprised by that. Harris has called abortion one of America's fundamental freedoms. No, it's not. So the ability to kill your child is a fundamental freedom in America. Let that sink in. The ability to kill your child is a fundamental freedom, according to Kamala Harris. And you wonder why in the black community, the birth rate is in decline. You wonder why in the black community there's a culture of death. You wonder why in the black community have so many young boys shooting each other. Matter of fact, I just saw a story talking about a murder that took place over the weekend in Chicago. More shootings. But you wouldn't hear about that this week at the DNC. The Depopulation of Negroes convention. The Democratic Party does nothing but continue the perpetual victimhood status of black people. And it's up to black people to recognize that we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. We don't have to be subservient to this agenda that's meant to destroy us, that's meant to depopulate our community. We don't. We have agency. We have the ability to make. Why do you think they're pushing now? They're pushing to legalize all these drugs. They're pushing to legalize marijuana. What do you think that does? That dumbs you down even further to be controlled by the state. Let's wake up, black people, to this sinister agenda that they have to destroy the black community.